Good morning. Today is Monday, March 2nd, 2020. And I remember when I first got here, I went to a board meeting in May, and the board was intending to do something. And this is what happened. The notice of intent to adopt or repeal or amend the Clark County School District Board of Trustees governance policies. Now, this notice to intent to adopt a repeal of amended Clark County School Board School District pursuant to NRS 386-365, the Clark County Board of School Trustees hereby notices its intent to consider to adopt or repeal the amendment of E2, student learning. Now, see, this is where you can find what I'm getting ready to share with you. So this is what happened. The E2, this student learning, they struck all this. But look, it was only adopted in February 13th, 2014. And this is when they said that they would monitor the progress of all students. And this is the vision that they had aligned, that they were working towards. They had an evaluation process. None of this was ever followed through with. And this is what I want you to understand. All of this was struck. And because they struck it, that means they're no longer governing anyone. They are elected to govern, but they are not governing student learning. So they struck this. We believe all students can achieve and learn and succeed irrespective of their circumstances. They struck that. Students shared responsibility for their learning. Each student is entitled to an excellent education that meets his or her individual needs. How do they strike it and put nothing in place of it? Let's just keep scrolling. See, it says deleted. And then that's it. And there's one more I would like to share with you. I have to shrink this one. And I think it was in my, it's going to be here. No, that's not it. This is educational policy and the law. And I would suggest that, you figure out where it's at, download it, because it really just talks about the schooling and the state. And these are lawsuits that were filed. And when people are looking when they make a decision, basically, and the decision is based on whatever they're basing it on. Sharing is paused. Bring your window front. Oh, did I pause sharing? I want to unpause it. No, I'm not sure if I'm still sharing. But anyways, I was looking for something. The window that I was sharing, I guess. Because I'm going to have to re-share. Resume to share. Oh, that's it. Resume to share. But I have to have something to share. It was in my Google Downloads, but I'm not exactly sure how to get there from here because that's where I was. Well, we should really talk about just what's really going on in America, and that is everyone has access and can access information. Let me see if I can just share this. So let me stop this share the screen, and this is where I have to go. Here we go. And share this screen. Otherwise, you were just seeing probably blank nothing. Not exactly sure, because I know I covered the camera. Anyway, this is the consolidated state plans. And this was done in August of 2017. And I believe that I've shared this content, but I really want to focus on what's not happening across America for all children. What's not happening is the maintenance of effort. What's not happening is grade level proficiency, because there are times when children do not make progress. And then during those times, what happens is they're still promoted. And I think that that's what we need to understand, because we're creating a nation of people who are not getting beyond the 8th grade, perhaps not even getting beyond the 5th grade. And so, but under ESSA, every state has to submit a plan. And this is how the money, what's included in these consolidated state plans. And that's Title I, Title I Part C, Part A, Part D, Part A, and Title III. But if you can see how these are, described as basic programs operated by the LEA, education for migratory children, prevention and intervention programs for youth who are neglected at risk. And so, when children are just failing and they just continue to promote them, I'm just confused what the intent becomes behind education, because in essence, this is just criminal behavior to me, simply because if you're not making adequate yearly progress, or you're not making progress that is going to benefit your needs, then someone is documenting what you don't have the ability to do. And they're keeping great records of what you don't have the ability to do. And then by the time it's time for you to graduate, well, we can all agree that far too many kids are homeless, far too many children are going into juvenile facilities. We're housing our youth in criminal containment. So when they get out of juvenile hall, what do they really have? They really don't have nothing. We lock people up for years and we transition them to nothing. Although we do have prison industries online. And in prison industries, I guess it depends on who gets a contract to work with those prisoners, because those prisoners get paid 25 to 30 cents an hour, but that money goes on their books, and then they may be making license plates. They may be making what? I don't know. You could learn anything. Depends on who has a contract. Furniture? Yeah, I think that there is prison industries online, and anyone can log on and find that. And actually, they have stock that's invested in those stock market. And then, when it really comes to containment, what we really have to understand is the number of people who are being incarcerated, and those boxes or, of ramen noodles that can be transitioned in if your family member or something is giving you some food while you're locked up. And it all starts here. It all starts here in basic education that every child should have an access to. And every child should have access to quality education, because we all pay taxes. Just like when you're working, you all pay health care until you're not working, that is. But we all pay taxes. And so those tax dollars, even if you don't have children, go into public services. And those public services are provided by local communities. And we, the people, should be involved in electing representatives who represent our interests, who can ensure that education happens. My son said, you should be just talking about real stuff, Mom. The real everyday stuff. Well, the real everyday stuff is that so many people don't understand that we all live by rules. And there is processes that should be followed, and they are not being followed. And so therefore, someone has to share information. And simply I believe that I'm a good one to share. Now let me scroll up a little bit here. The S estate plan. If a state chooses to use alternative templates, a template other than the revised template on March 13, 2017, it must include this information. So it has a section of information that they have to include: cover sheet, table of contents, and indicate the work through the Council of Chief of State of School Officers. I'm not even seeing that for Nevada, nor I don't even believe I've seen it for the state of California. And those are the two last states that I know that I've lived in. But anyways, let's just look. Long-term goals. Look, differentiation and weight of indicators. School identification criteria to exit. That would be to exit program improvement. Objectives and outcomes. Peer review. You know, there are peer review of everybody's state plans at the Department of Education, ED Online. And sometimes you might get an error that you can't access it. I guess maybe, I don't know what's going on with their servers, but it doesn't really matter. Those state plans have been submitted already and are submitted from the state of California and also submitted from the state of Nevada. I know those plans exist. You can go and download them and review them yourself because they do exist, even if you never knew that they were being prepared. Let's just go up a little bit. Here is what's required in those state plans. My goodness. Fully address the state plans, meaning all applicable statutory regulatory requirements, address all of the elements of the requirements. Utilize the state, this peer review thing. I wonder, oh no, I don't think I can push it either. And then here we go. I don't think they're gonna have waivers that much longer. But then it switches, and let me see if I can switch it. I probably can rotate this. There we go, rotated it. The assessment requirements, 8th grade math, exception. See, really, everything's going to depend on what your state does and how your state manages the data, and if there's improvement in the strategies that the states are using. And here are the indicators of academic achievement. And, you know, anyone should be able to log on any school's plan for student achievement and see how they're spending the money and understand how they're measuring proficiency for all students by ethnicity and by grade level. And that is my issue, because I can see in California, I could actually participate on school site council and see that data. And that data was there. And the school site council would talk about what was happening in the classrooms or how they were addressing the students' needs. Here, you look at a plan and it has the people's names and how much money. And I believe that's about it. I don't have nothing else. And that's confusing to me, simply because community people or lay people can't make good decisions if they don't have any good data to look at and understand if they're putting their children in safe environments. So let's move on. I've given you enough time to read this and I don't have to read it to you. Here we go. Indicators of other academic indicators for elementary and secondary schools that are not high schools. This requirement describe the other academic indicators, including how annually measured performance for all students separately for each subgroup if the other academic indicators is not measured of student growth. The description must include a demonstration that the indicator is valid and reliable statewide academic indicator that allows for a meaningful differentiation in school performance. So that's just for schools that are not high schools. But let me tell you, in California, I was working with some students. They were not my children, but working alongside another parent, and they were young African American males. Every time we would go to the IEP, it would be concerning to me simply because they were not making progress. And the letter grade of F was just given to us as parents participating. So there was really never any access provided to the content simply because the children were not at grade level. And even though they said that they Z-coded the curriculum to create access, none of the teachers ever did that level of work. So access was really never ever provided. And the letter and in the tenacity of those teachers and staff to give children letter grades of F showed me that those children were in the most restricted environment and they could not make adequate yearly progress simply because they had no access, and no access was created. And I have filed complaints with the Office of Civil Rights, and because I am one person, I am not respected as a citizen. They expected me to go and teach. So here we are teaching, but I still cannot be responsible for people who are put in places or position themselves to take selfies and present data that is not correct, that brings no support to anyone. It's very difficult to stand alongside people who never chose to commit their lives to learning. And that's what you basically have to do in life. You basically have to commit yourself to face the trials and tribulations in life so that you can move forward. Because without facing what you actually have to face, meaning the challenge will always come, it will never go away simply because you choose not to move forward. If you're not doing the work, don't expect that you'll ever learn the lesson. So sometimes lessons are just not learned. But for my people, or people who look like me, for Black people, the criminality of placing Black people in positions of living and being citizens without a voice, with no ability to change circumstances in their community, because simply, I gotta straighten up here because I uncovered my camera, so I'll be on part of this video. Fix my hair a little bit, but just allowing us, or, Civil Rights Act happened in 1964, and even in Las Vegas, the deltas and the Sigma deltas, I'm not exactly sure how that all runs because I wasn't one of them, but they're educated Black people or educated Black women. They had a march, at least about 200 of them, and they marched like they were on that Pettus Bridge that they talk about in Selma in regards to walking towards freedom. And that walk symbolized so much in America for African Americans, or formerly enslaved African Americans, or Black Americans who never were even involved in that, but that oppression lives on. Oppression is real. The entitlement of someone granting you a job and then taking it away, or granting you a job and keeping you at a low wage and never promoting you. And understand that, working for someone As long as you're doing a good job, you would hope that they would choose to keep you. But there are people that can move you out and move family members in based on, contracts. Because simply, there are very few, or far more fewer, state jobs, far more fewer federal jobs, far more fewer county jobs, simply because of contracts and contract providers. Even in public education, there are contractors. And understand me when I say third-party providers are not held accountable for anything. So anyways, that is an issue. Let's move up a little bit. I'm still on this page here. Indicators of graduation rates, or graduation indicators. And this is what we need to talk about when we're talking about this, because you know what? Just because you get a certificate of completion doesn't mean that you will be able to be employed. Show active speaker. Oh, why is my speaker is active, I believe. No, my speaker's active. And so when California moved to eliminate its responsibility to move children towards the high school exit exam, that was because so many kids in the 8th grade were not reading at the 8th grade level, and they couldn't pass that Casey. And so therefore, after they start taking it in the 8th grade, but it's only at the 8th grade level. So no, I don't think they start taking it at the 10th or the 11th grade, but it's in the 8th grade level. And then they had to pass it in order to get a high school diploma. So people were struggling with that. High school students were struggling with passing 8th grade level requirements. But when my son took it, honey, he passed it. Both my children did. And they were in special ed. And understand that's because I had meetings. I think I had meetings every 3 months. It didn't really matter to me. I've been put in a position to shadow my children through their educational process simply because I had a workers' comp injury. They said it was carpal tunnel. Turns out they said it was fibromyalgia, but turns out really probably it was just rheumatoid arthritis because I was working in a toxic environment. And so I do suffer from chronic pain. It's not as bad here here in Las Vegas. The heat is wonderful here. And so anyways, let me just get on here and keep on talking, because people really need to understand that the offer of faith can be anything. It could be a modified behavior, especially when they lower the graduation requirements to a certificate of completion and you're not even working towards a regular high school diploma. You're just going every day. So it doesn't matter really what they're doing for you because they're not monitoring it anymore. When you're getting that certificate of completion, they're getting a paycheck and you ain't getting jack shit, nothing. You're not getting anything. You can't go into the military with a certificate of completion, and you cannot go and get federal financial aid until you reach a level that denotes that you are competent, basically. And that's kind of like a certificate of incompetency. That's what it is. It's worse. I mean, my sons were in special ed, but guess what? They got a regular high school diploma and they made adequate yearly progress, and they used special education for the intent, and the purpose of it was to create a bridge so that my children could access resources just as a non-disabled child. But when you use it, and then you create a whole tier of people who are second-class citizens, is insanity, because we are paying for people not to do the work that they are getting paid for. And don't believe that you don't see people on vacation for those 3 months of summer, and we're paying them for a vacation when they should be strategically planning as to how to support those children that they're getting letter grades of F. What is a letter grade of F when you're in a federal program or a federal school or a mandated program? Mandated by law, by compulsory laws on the books. Every child must be in a program. All right, let's move on. Sometimes I just go off, I think. Here we go. English language proficiency. So, because America provides money to transition language. There's federal money towards that. Know that. And there's rules around it. Know that. Indicators. They got some indicators. We all need to understand that there are indicators that demonstrate the measurement or the measurable performance for all students separately in the subgroups. So how do you do this if you don't do it? There's no data that demonstrates that the indicators are provided to the public. In Clark County, it doesn't exist. I haven't seen it yet. And so because I haven't seen it, we're talking about it. And I can do my video and try to get other people to understand what I'm talking about. Okay, a little bit further up. Academic achievement, graduation rates, individually. That's why I say that just because they have improved the graduation rates here doesn't mean that the children are learning any better, because what they haven't done is provided the information to the number of children who would have been retained, who did not reach the 3rd grade reading proficiency based on the law. They didn't retain those children because they don't have anything that they're doing differently for those children. So I didn't even see the numbers of children that did not make it. But I know that there are a number of children, because there are still a number of children who are not reading at grade level, or probably not reading at the grade level of 3rd grade in the 8th and the 9th grade. But we don't know that information. Because we don't know that information publicly, we can't even discuss it, and we can't hold the district accountable for what you don't know. But they should be providing this information. This is why you pay your taxes, to ensure that quality services are happening across the nation. And we as the people need to do a little bit more in committing, while our children are in the system, the understanding of the system is just not babysitting. The benefit should be there so that your child can be independent after 12 years or 15 years of public services. But when your child comes out and they don't know what they're going to do, I don't know what they're going to do either. I'm just confused. I'm confused how a child can go to school every day and literally get an F. And I do understand why now we can see so many African-American children committing suicide at 8 and 9 years old, because they're awakening and there's no support, and no one is trying to support them. You know, I remember, my mother used to beat us. That's not funny, but we got whoopings. And we would get whoopings behind the report card as if we had something to do with it. But, in the differentiation of the military lifestyle and the public school services, and what happens to you when you're in the public receiving services, there's a total difference. In the military, in MWR, reality is that no matter what base you went to, you started on one paragraph. When you got to the next base, you ended up right on the same paragraph, and it was SQRs, reading, writing, and arithmetic, or something like that. The little box followed you no matter where you were, and you'd be on the same books, the same page, no matter where you were. However, in a regular town, in a regular city, you could go across the street and you would be doing something totally different, from school to school, from place to place. And so some people would be successful and some people would not. And because there is a governing body that's governing all of these programs, money is moved from one place to another based on the level of engagement of the community, ensuring that resources are actually happening in one place. But when that money doesn't get spent by the end of the allocation year, then it's just simply moved to somewhere else. And then, I posted a video about the Alex Dawson Charter School here. And, the board, one of the board members clearly discussed how that money was funding two students, two poverty students. Out of 500 or 700 students, only two students went there for a summer program. And they had been getting the money for 10 years or more. And to me, that was fraud. But to me, I watched the board approve that allocation of money. And I can't ask myself, what else and why so many children are going to the juvenile hall here, because the resources are really not being allocated towards them when they use money for two students to support a charter school, which is not inclusive of everyone. It's not a Title I school. Shouldn't have had Title I money, but that was the money that was awarded to them. And no one said anything, and the board members approved. So, guess what? Realizing that I'm living in the Wild Wild West, and the people do what the Wild Wild West do. They do what they do. And that's just real. And I can only critique what I see, video record what I see, share what I see, and know that if I share it in a Google Drive, then someone can alter it. If I share it on my YouTube page, it will be there and no one can alter it. But these network people are people who have a little bit of skills. And I won't even call them network people because, you know, if you share in the wrong way and you say someone could edit and view, then they can edit your video or delete your video for a purpose. So some people you share with, and some people feel that whatever they did may have been wrong or whatever, and then they try to alter it by eliminating it. But hey, know that there's always a trail, and even if there's always a way around something. Permissions on one laptop, denying permissions on another laptop. Get real. But once you get it online, you put it out there on your cloud, it lives. The cloud lives because the cloud is collecting information on you that you don't know. So you might as well put everything you do in the cloud and save your own apps, basically. Anyways, I'm going to pause the video for a moment. Yes. You know, you get these prank calls. You just have to not ignore them, just in case. But anyways, on with the video. I didn't pause it, so let's just go up a little bit. Requirement for each indicator must be calculated consistently for all students across each subgroup, and that's what you don't see. No disaggregated data, because remember when I went through that other video, how they struck their responsibility to do all that disaggregated data? They're not doing it because they're not even holding the superintendent accountable for it. Yet and still, here we are. This is what the federal government says should be there. The lowest performing 5% lowest graduation rate, additional targeted support. See, the support should really be written in the school plans, and the behavioral issues should not be increasing, and the transition of students that move from place to place should not be happening. And we need to understand that when students are consistently transitioning, even in a fishbowl like Nevada, because Las Vegas is like a fishbowl, they're still in the same area. Unlike when you're in a military environment and you're moving from country to country, and no matter where you left off is where you begin. But here, everybody's doing something different, and children have such limited access to services. I'm not understanding what's going on here. I'm not understanding how they can have I've never seen anybody with a 259% suspension exposure rate for a particular subgroup. Unless you're just telling me that the plantation exists out here and I'm unaware of it. But I would be aware of a lot of things, just like I wasn't aware of the Deltas doing that march the other day. And there's no way I would know. There's not a page that shows what's happening in Las Vegas for Blacks. There's not Black people, even though they come to perform here, they're not part of the Black community because there's no Black community here. There's just isolation because Blacks are scattered all. Oh, there is a great radio station though, 88.1. That's a great radio station. And KCEP is the radio station, and they do keep you informed. Now, maybe if I had listened to the radio before that happened, I would know what was going on. But it's unfortunate that I missed that. But usually that's how I know what's going on, the radio station. But it was, they did have a community meeting the other day, and they're going to have another one on March 14th. And just understanding that there is an intent behind public mandated education. There is an intent behind truancy laws. And there is an intent behind the partnership of the Department of Health and Human Services and the Welfare Department, working with local schools in capacity building for the families who are in need, who may be homeless. I mean, it's hard for me to hear people apologize for not having a place or not getting the kids to school because I know life is not easy. Life is hard. My sister was explaining to me that she believes that there's a family of 3 living in a car in front of her house. And I'm saying, what must that feel like to not have the ability to provide for your family? When we do recall when my children were younger, the student outreach workers would help coordinate services for families who were homeless and try to find and put them and work with the welfare department and work with the Department of, Housing and Urban Development to get families off the street so the children would not suffer. How is it that we have laws and we're trying to go to mandatory not giving women the right to choose to have an abortion or not if they can't maintain their lives? How is it that we just simply don't seem to care anymore? And that is my concern with trying to share that, we, the people, have already provided strategies to success, basically, for families and communities if we follow the rules. Let me go up a little bit more here. Additional targeted support. And so, you have to know that there's the Workforce Investment Act, the WIA. All of this money is coming together to support families in local communities. But local communities and families need to understand that they're really supposed to be doing this kind of work. Identify comprehensive support, not less than the lowest performing 5% of the Title I Part A schools, and notify the LEAs. Notify the LEAs of any subgroup performing poorly. So, if you're really working on these areas, you would be able to identify the need and actually help provide support to ensure that transition is targeted and supported. Let's just go up a little bit more. Additional targeted support. And so, where do you find this kind of information? Because guess what? I haven't found it yet. I'm reading Nevada stuff. And the other day I read Nevada State Plan. And I don't believe it targets the support like the intended description as provided from the federal government for all states to utilize. All right, school identification process based on this Dear Colleague letter dated in April the 10th, 2017. So we're in 2020. So by 2019, these things were supposed to be happening, but they're not. Here we are in Nevada talking about the weighted student formula once again. how they're going to support all children, first with the breakup of the money, and then a little bit on the top for the additional targeted support. It doesn't work like that. And it's unduplicated services to these children. And that's what it's supposed to be, unduplicated. Not, you can't count them for everything and then act like it's happening. It's not happening because the failure is happening. Continued support for schools in LEA improvement. Well, we have to first be able to see the support that should be happening and measure and monitor it as a community. You would hope that there is some sense of cohesiveness, or those SOT teams that are really doing some conversations around the targeted area of support that's required by law, but they're not. Those teams ain't telling you nothing. I didn't see anything by going to that website and trying to understand what's happening. Okay. Of course, there's always flexibility, but you would hope when you're using flexibility and doing school-wide programs that you're still maintaining the bottom. And that's what we're looking for. Disproportionate rates of access to educators. Describe how the low-income minority children enrolled in these schools assisted under Title I Part A are not served at a disproportionate rate by ineffective, out-of-field, inexperienced teachers, and the measures the SEA, the State Educational Agency, will use to evaluate, publicly report the progress of the State Educational Agency with respect to such a description. Now, that is some real stuff right there. Now, when I say that's real shit, that's what's supposed to be happening, truly. How is that happening? And how do we question it? That's what we should be doing as a community. That's what the level of community engagement is. But you first have to know that you're supposed to be taking a role in this just by you paying some taxes and being a citizen and living in that area. Personal responsibility is real. Title I Part C, supporting the migratory children. So we all know it's real. Promote the coordination of services. You're supposed to describe how you're going to do this. The use of funds. Describe the priorities for the use of Title I funds, Part C, and how the priorities relate to the state assessments and the needs for services. I mean, that's why you have a Department of Health and Human Services, and you can't even have a conversation about the coordination of how that's working. I saw bits and pieces of the County Board of Commissioners, and I believe I called there and I tried to get a conversation with someone there before. They don't reach back, and that's just real. So, I mean, I would have to try to figure out what day they meet, because it's the County Board of Commissioners that are responsible for all children making adequate yearly progress or being engaged. And they just can't keep on running these camps and putting more and more Black children up there. I hear that they have 80% Black people up there in the juvenile facilities here in Clark County. And they're lost people. We are lost people. There should be a school of music up there. We are talented people. We've always had talent as a people. But I don't know these days. I've seen, people should go and get R. Kelly's video, Planet, and play the whole, all the music that's on his last album. Because it is what's going on with this planet. And he talks about relationships that he's living on the streets. That I believe he's a real person who lives in his community and still deals with those people. And the songs that he sings about and engaging in the music and the reality of life that he sings about is frightening. It's painful to understand that a group of young Black men will be conversating and another group of young Black men might pull up and actually gun down everyone in the area based on what? What is happening with our people? My people are traumatized without the ability to have sustained support to transition to freedom, simply being denied the opportunity to learn and being in the most restrictive environments and receiving letter grades of F. That just denotes that the system is failing to provide services to a targeted subgroup of people, Black people. And Black people don't know how to engage in the process of understanding, articulating, and holding the system accountable to ensure that citizenship happen, that they become a productive member and are able to pay taxes. And even if they are not able to pay taxes, that they have access to resources and the resources actually bring benefit and not oppression. Just not oppression. Anyways, let's move on. Title I, Part D. Here we go. The transition between correctional facilities and local programs. This is a federal law. The plan, provide a plan for assisting the transition of children and youth between correctional facilities and locally operated programs. But even if they're operating these programs, what does the program bring? Because, hey, third-party provider, that's what we're looking at. Programs, objectives, and outcomes. The state will establish and that will be used by the state and that will be assessed effectiveness of Title I Part D programs and in improving academic career technical skills of these children in these programs. And so who are those children? And how are they qualified? And how many people are going through that? That could be a wonderful opportunity, or it could be a terrible nightmare if someone is actually just lining their pocket and nobody's benefiting. But with the number of homeless that are living on the streets here, it's my concern that people are just lining their pockets here. So we have to see. Title I, Part 2, improving the skills of educators. Now see, this right here concerns me. I'll tell you why it concerns me. The teachers were getting ready to strike, and they were demanding the professional development. But understand me when I say they get to choose where they work. They don't have to work with those kids who are really in need. And so in schools where there's high poverty, it's difficult to get people to work over there, and they just choose not. So they have vacancies, and the money's still allocated over there, I'm sure, but until it's not used and shifted back because it's not used, and those teachers just going without placement over there. But to me, that's criminal because that's stealing. How is it that you get to choose where you get to work, but the money comes from all of us to help provide additional training to you, and you just get it like a benefit? It's just like a reward. But you don't have to give back to nobody. So you get to use the benefit of professional development and make yourself highly qualified, but you ain't got to give nothing back. You ain't got to go over there and do nothing. Even though the law requires that if you're going to work with those targeted students, that you have access to the federally funded professional development. Okay. Get a clue. We're training people to be GATE certified, but they don't ever have to work. They only want to work with the best and the brightest. That's, it's their choice. They get to work. You wouldn't expect, woman said, well, you wouldn't expect me to work and not have choice at where I work, right? And I'm saying, if you take the money, then you pay the pittance. That's really what it is. You have to give to the system to sustain the system. The system is broken. And we can't keep on giving this money if you're not willing to do the work. There has to be some level of accountability, which doesn't exist. Let's keep moving on. Data and consultation. Requirements. Describe how the state will use data, ongoing consultation, to describe ESEA, Section 210 of 2101, D3, continually to update and improve the activities supported under Title II and Title and Part A. Teachers, principals, school leaders, paraprofessionals, including organizations representing such individuals, specialized instruction, supporting personnel, charter school leaders, and in local educational agency had a charter school, parents, community partners, and other organizations. Okay. Entrance and exit procedures. Okay. I don't think anybody transitioned because we're at the bottom. State educational support for English learners, monitoring technical assistance, Title 5. Okay, let's see. Is that Title 4? I'm not exactly sure what those Roman numerals are. Not, okay. Subawards, what is that? Formula, subawards based on relative share of funds under Title I, Part A, preceding fiscal year, no allocation under $10,000, competitive subawards prioritized based on LEA with greatest need in the manner of ensuring geographic diversity. Awards amounts not less than $10,000 for performance of the period year, combinations of awards and competitive whatever. It's just how they're using the money. See, they're still talking about the 21st century learning centers. People should go read about that. I read about it at one time. Let's just keep going up. Outcomes and objectives. Technical assistance. See, there's always technical assistance that you can get from the federal government if you want it. Strategies to address other problems. Provide strategies to address other problems with respect to education of homeless children and youth, including problems resulting from enrollment delays that are caused by requirements of immunization and required health records, resident required, lack of birth certificate, school, whatever. See, they say work around it. That's what they say, because those kids are still entitled. Policies to remove these barriers. See? Come on now. Then they give you some resources. And then, if you have any questions, please, if you have any questions, don't ask me. Take a snapshot of here and make sure that you follow up on what comprehensive school plans look like. And then look in your local school to see if it is comprehensive and can you understand what's happening? How do they disaggregate the data? But of course, we know we're going to have to hold the local school board accountable for no disaggregation of data. All right, I'm signing off for now, and I'll be back later. And remember, I'm going to put this on my YouTube channel, so please subscribe and hit the thumbs up button if you like the video. Thank you.